Hey everyone, this is Martin. Happy New Year 2026, January the 2nd today. I've been doing a course on Udemy around C++, OpenGL Game Engine development, and I thought I'd share my journey and little adventure as I'm going along, trying to kind of improve. One is my C++ skills, but understand a little bit more around engine architecture, how that works, because it's something that has kind of been obfuscated, I suppose, or abstracted away with the use of Unity. Of course, we don't need to know the nitty-gritty details. So that's kind of my motivation is behind this. So I'll quickly show you kind of what I'm up to, and I'll give a little overview of this project. I'm not going to show everything because this is a course that I am following on Udemy, and of course, I'm not going to share their course out to the world. You can check out their course if you're interested, but a sort of overview as I'm going along anyway. So just show you what I've kind of got so far. I'm kind of, I think, roughly halfway through the course at the moment, and this is kind of what we've got running so far. Basic scene, we're instantiating a few cubes there, as you can see, that are textured. We've also got this, I think the model's called Suzanne, that monkey thing that I've seen a few places now. We've got directional lighting in the scene. We've got the ability to rotate the mouse, the camera around. We've got a camera system, as you can obviously tell. And I'm moving around here using WASD, so we're detecting input. This has all been done with, GLFW is the windowing context and the input. The windowing framework and the input handling has gone through that. Not using the Windows API to do that. That's handled by GLFW. It's a cross-platform windowing framework they can use on Mac, Windows, Linux. So yeah, this is what we've got so far. The course progresses onto physics, lighting, and basically makes like an FPS at the end of it as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that, and I've been doing this for the past few weeks, so I thought it might be an interesting share. And I can just talk about the project a little bit and give an overview. Again, I'm not going to go into all the details because I can't, I don't want to share all the code. The author of the course has worked very hard to create something very cool. But yeah, so I guess kind of where to start off. Well, the first thing for me is that this is built using CMake. So I've got basically two CMake folders here. Two CMake list files, which are the where CMake gets its information from. So that, I guess, is the first thing, which is a little bit different for me. I'm used to using either, obviously Unity with like a C# project or C++ within a Visual Studio project. So this was a little bit different. This one here is the game. I guess if I just kind of collapse these, you can see what is also a little bit different for me, or I guess first time working on an engine, is that we've got a separation between the actual game and the engine itself. So here's kind of like the example game code down here in source, and here's the engine. So the engine gets built as a library file, so a static library that gets included in the game. You can also see that we've got a separate CMake list here for the engine as well, and as we're going, we're including the source files to include and compile, and then as a dependency for the game itself, I think include directories there. You've got engine.source, and then the linked library there, engine, which gets included in the final executable. So that's kind of the first thing that was a little bit different for me. I did have to do a little bit of reading into CMake. I knew CMake for a while. I just hadn't done any hands-on work with CMake, so I did a little bit of digging and understanding of more of how that works. I guess just to kind of give a little overview of where life begins and the overall structure. Now, as I'm going along in this course, I understand a little bit of how things are structured. Some of it is not all sinking in, let's say. I do need to go back and kind of understand this a little bit more as I'm typing along with the course. But I am picking up a lot of things as I'm going as well, and just understanding, this is how it's structured. So for those of you out there who may be used to game engines like Unreal or maybe more Unity, you might see kind of the parallels of where this works as well. So, anyway, life begins at main, main.cpp. This is the main entry point for a C++ program, which is great. I like to know where things begin. You can kind of know exactly where things kick off on where things get called. Unity obfuscates all of that, of course, which is fine, you know, for what you need. But I like to understand what's going on. Here we're just creating an instance of the game class, and then passing that game class to the engine so that it knows it's got a reference to the application. And again, this is the engine up here, which is the built as a library file, static library file, which is included in the game executable. So, and then first thing is, anyway, if we go into run here, this is where we're pumping sort of the main update loop. So here we've got the while loop with if GLFW, which is the windowing library, if it's not closed, as in we've not clicked on the cross on the upper right, or if we've not forced it to be closed, then we're going to pump the update loop. You know, this is sort of like the main update loop that we've got at the moment. Again, this might change a little bit as the course evolves. I don't know yet because I've not done it. But here we're checking for the input events. Again, GLFW. We're updating the application. So this is sort of the, you know, updating like physics, positions based on input, movement, animation. And then finally at the bottom here, we're doing the rendering, render queue.draw. There you go. So that's the final sort of like link in the chain, I suppose. But we're also handling lights, and then we've got scenes and a camera component. So the camera component, or the component system in general, is matching or feels very similar to me how it works in Unity. So you've got an entity component system, you've got game objects, and then on those game objects you'll put components. Game objects, scenes own game objects as well. So within the scene objects, you've got a list of game objects. So if I go to application update in here, this might make things a little bit clearer and maybe a little bit more obvious when the parallels with Unity. So we've got game update. You know, so the current scene that we've got, we're updating that. Makes sense. You've only got one scene live at a time. And then for all of the objects in the scene, so this is the vector or the list of objects, we're looping over all of them and checking, hey, is it alive? And if so, do the update. And then for all of the components that game object has, then we're calling update on each of those as well. So for example, here we've got like a camera component update. If I just put this up here, let me get rid of that second. Sorry, let me just scroll down here a little bit. Nothing's happening on there right now, but if I go to another one, I think it's player controller, which has a little bit more happening on update. Yeah, so there we go. So for example, the player component, player controller component, sorry, which can be added to a game object, then becomes controllable. So, you know, if the mouse input is pressed, left button, then getting the old position, the new position, figuring out the delta, and then we're updating the position of this object. Now, this is just updating any game object at all. It can have a camera on it. It doesn't have to have a camera on it. Here you can see as well, like the A, D keys, W. I think this is left mouse button click, and this is rotation. But I think if I go into game CPP here, which again, this is part of the game. I think what I've done is, again, this is following the course. These are the cubes that are being created. So, you know, create object. That's fairly straightforward and pretty obvious. Now you're adding it to the scene here, so you're going to scene, create objects, creating a game object, and then, as I said, like this entity component system. I think I'm using the right terminology there. Please correct me if I'm wrong, anybody. But I'm adding the component, in this case, a mesh component. Same here, but and then setting rotation and setting position and so forth. I think, and then this is the Suzanne model, which is that monkey model. There you go. So create object camera. That was the one that I was looking for. So we've added a component, a camera component, setting the position, and then we're adding a player controller to that camera game object as well. So that's where we're getting this first-person shooter sort of controls. But it doesn't have to be on the camera component. This player controller component could be on one of these objects, and then that would move around. So this is, again, where I'm seeing these similarities and understanding more of how game engines work under the hood and component systems. So that's pretty interesting. That's kind of what I wanted to get out of this as well, but also I do want to make a little bit of a first-person shooter prototype, which this course is all lean towards as well, which is cool. It's got physics in it. I'll share more as I go along as well. I'm trying to think what to talk around next. Maybe a little bit. I'll probably delve into a couple of these subjects as I understand them more, as I make separate videos. The other thing is we've got an asset loading system now, which is what I've implemented through the course over the past sort of few lessons. So resource management, loading from resource files, so shaders, text, and materials. What we had at the beginning of the course was basically the shader code was within the it was hard coded within the CPP file here. So if I just go to the vertex shader here, this is now just a separate text file that gets loaded in. So I think if I go to, just to give you an example of where that happens, if I can remember, again, as I said, I don't fully know where this is. Oh, there's a light as well. A light, again, it's a game object in the world. You add a light component, and then you set, color, position, etc., etc., and you've now got a light as a separate game object that you can manipulate, just like any other game object, position, rotation, etc. So, where was I? Material. There it is. There's an example. So, we're doing material or mesh, and it might be a little bit more relevant. Actually, create cube. Sorry, I'm talking all over the place here. Create cube is something like built in within the mesh component itself, because it's kind of like, I think create game objects is what we have in Unity, where or you can create a primitive, like primitive.create, something like that, and then you can select cube, and that's sort of hard coded within the engine. It's not like a separate cube asset that we have here as a model. So that's something that's built in, which is pretty cool. So just defining position, color, the UVs so that you can manipulate lighting, and then the direction, the normals of those faces as well. And then we're also using indices to save on sending too much vertex data to the GPU. But the other one, just to give you I was talking about loading. So create cube. There you go. So material.load. So again, path relative to the assets folder up here, which is cool. Just you don't have to do this long, upper path .. back to paths and all that jazz. It's all coming from the assets folder. This is like the root. And again, similar to how Unity works, where you've got your assets folder, and that's where that's where you can reference assets from. But here, like, we're getting an instance of the engine, and we're loading an asset file. This all, again, is sort of built around this idea of a resource loading and asset system, where anything which is not code is an asset, and you can load it in via a code path, and you can read it. In this case, what we're getting is, the material here. So we're doing material load. Again, it's part of them. Well, it's the part of that material class. Materials themselves are JSON, and then within that JSON file, if I can find it, so materials, if I do the brick.mat one here, I think, we're giving the path to the shaders that we're using for this particular material. A lot of this, again, or some of it, I understand the code here, but the overall structure and architecture of the project is still something I need to get more familiar with. So this video is actually kind of helpful for me as well, kind of reviewing and just digging in a little bit. If I go back to main, was it main or game? We'll go from main. I'm just trying to find the render loop, because this was the other thing that was, again, kind of a learning point for me, which was interesting. Is this render queue here, render queue.draw. So once we've done getting the input, and then updating the application with delta time, which was here, we're doing the rendering, which is all down here, and this is where the call is to begin that render. So we've got the render queue.draw, and basically it loops over all of the commands within the render queue to draw them. So this is interesting. We've got a list of commands that we want to then draw, and then each command is its own separate draw call at the moment, which makes sense. So for example, in this case, I'm doing draw mesh. And then within the graphics API, we're doing draw, and then mesh itself. Again, you can see mesh.cpp there is highlighted, and that's where we're calling draw, and that's where we call into OpenGL. This is an OpenGL command saying draw elements. We also have draw arrays there if we don't have the indices to draw. But this is the reason why I find this kind of interesting or useful as well, is you can actually count the amount of draw calls that are being sent you've got a lot of control, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Is like you can throw in like a count here, or if you wanted to debug it, you know, which frame are you on. If you call in draw, for example, say this is frame, I don't know, 5, whatever, how many draw calls happened within this frame, and then you can count, okay, that's how many times it was sent. And then you can begin to optimize in there if you, down the line, if to build some kind of instancing system, or what's the other system called? I'm forgetting now. Where you can send all different kind of vertex data to the mesh and to the GPU, and it'll draw it in one. Not instancing. Oh boy, it'll come to me. It's still the morning, so I need more coffee. But yeah, this is pretty cool. So what you'll get is, so we'll submit a render command during the update. So if I go to submit and just find the references for this one, and I can probably find an example, hopefully. If I go down a little bit, submit render command. Just trying to see what was submitted. I think it's on the mesh itself. It should be. Render queue.submit command. There you go. So mesh component. Yeah. So that's a good example. Let me just get rid of this. So here we've got mesh update, which is called from that earlier in that main game loop, and then that's where we're sending this render queue, submit. So we're building up the command and then sending that to the render queue. Once the update loop is finished, as in the simulation, as it's sometimes called, or simulate part of the update loop, then we call render, and then down here draw is where this gets called. So you can see each individual mesh at the moment, each individual mesh component would have its own draw call, even if it was the same mesh. So that's where instancing could potentially be used. Again, I'm forgetting what the other system is called here. Not GPU instancing. Batching. That's what I'm thinking of. Batching. Whereby, so instancing is where you'd have like the same object drawn over and over. So you'd send a single set of vertex data. So for example, if I go to, where is it? Mesh.cpp, I think it was. So you basically send all of this data to the GPU once. So the positions, colors, yada yada yada, and then as a separate set of information, the position, the rotation, and the scale of each of those objects. So it might just be position and rotation. I can't remember, but you don't have to resend this all the time separately. You basically send this once, and then another set of commands just once of where you want it to be instanced. I think that's something I've got to dig into a little bit more. I have read about it. But again, it's one of those things in Unity where we get it abstracted. So we just click a box, GPU instancing, boom, good to go. So that's kind of my desire to understand this a little bit more and build something at the same time within C++. I did do it a few weeks back with that vector out game that you might have saw. That was a very basic example, but this is, next kind of level is in. It's a first-person shooter. It's got a scene. It's got engine components. And the idea is that you can reuse this engine code as well in the next game. So you can build up on this sort of engine source here, and then when you come to create a new game, you'd have this engine brought into that project, potentially linked externally. So the engine might live on a different folder within your drive, and then you import it that way. Maybe potentially you could do that. You can do that, of course, but I like the idea of having it in the project and then separate from other ones so that you don't break the projects. So yeah, anyway, I'll leave it there when I've rambled on a little bit and done a bit of talking. So what I'll do is I'll put the course link within the description below so you can check it out on Udemy. It is an affiliate link, so if anybody does end up purchasing it, it supports the channel and I'll make a small percentage. So yeah, thank you if you do. It has been really good so far. I can't vouch for the entire course because I've not finished it yet. So don't take my word for it completely, but so far it's been really good. The guys explain things really well, good resources. Hoping to get through it over the next couple of weeks, and as I go, I'll be doing more and talking more. So I hope you guys are finding this interesting. Any questions, let me know. If you want me to dig into something, maybe I can answer it. So yeah, have a good one. Bye.